Have you ever been curious about the genders of certain cards inside of Clash Royale? Like when Supercell blew everyone's minds when it was confirmed that P.E.K.K.A is in fact a lovely lady. But what about the dozens of other ambiguous cards inside of Clash? By the end of the video, I'm going to provide you with a definitive list and count of all of the gendered cards inside of Clash. So let's get right into it. The first thing we want to be aware of is how each of these cards are going to be classified. There are currently 110 cards inside of Clash Royale, and each of them fits into one of 4 categories: male, female, male and female, or both, and ambiguous. And every single card inside of Clash Royale can be placed into one of these 4 buckets. The next thing that I want to briefly touch on is the sorting methodology. In order to place our cards into one of these 4 buckets, we will use only information related to gender given to us by Supercell themselves, meaning only explicit Clash lore that is available inside of the game or from another verified source like Supercell's Twitter page. Most of the time, we will be using the verbiage inside of the card's description to infer information about their implied gender. Now that we are aware of all of this, let's talk about the 3 different card types inside of Clash Royale. The 3 card types are as follows: spells, buildings, and troops. And 2 of these 3 entire card types we can essentially classify as ambiguous. Starting off with the 18 spells inside of the game, we can pretty much write these off as ambiguous. From reading all of the card descriptions, they all use gender-neutral terminologies. And of course, spells themselves aren't really personified, so it feels kind of silly to assign a gender to them. The only 2 spells that I would really make an exception for are the Goblin Barrel and the Bar Barrel, because both of these spells spawn troops. But these troops will be covered in a later section of the video, so just to keep things nice and clean, we'll go ahead and classify all 18 spells as ambiguous. The second cluster of cards that are essentially irrelevant are the buildings. And no surprise, just like spells, all of the verbiage associated with buildings is gender neutral because they are buildings. And in a similar manner to spells, it is worth noting that 7 of the 13 buildings in the game also spawn troops, but all of these troops that spawn are captured in the later section. So for a barbarian hut, we can classify the barbarians as their own entity. Same thing with the spear goblin hut or the furnace that spawns a fire spirit. All of those troops that spawn are classified as their own entities because the buildings themselves aren't what possess the gender, even if the cards that are inside might. Now that we've gotten some of the easy sorting out of the way, here is the math that remains. We have 31 cards that are labeled as ambiguous and 79 cards yet to be labeled. And those 79 cards that are left are what is known as troops. Troops, by definition, are cards that, when placed on the field, are permanent until defeated and will move towards the opposing crown towers with varying speeds. Essentially, the actual living things inside of Clash Royale that would make sense to have a gender. Now that we only have 79 troops left to cover, here is a reminder of our 4 sorting buckets below. Using only official lore and information given to us by a verified Supercell source, we're going to go group by group, starting with the lovely ladies. For the group shown below, we can see that there are 15 confirmed female cards inside of Clash Royale. Of these 15, I think 13 of them are fairly obvious, so for the purpose of length of video, I'm only going to explain the 2 anomalies. Yes, Sparky and P.E.K.K.A are both confirmed female cards via Supercell. On International Women's Day, Supercell posted this photo onto their Twitter account featuring the Sparky and the P.E.K.K.A. And if we read the description for Sparky, we can see overkill isn't in her vocabulary, also confirming this. So here's a look one more time at all of the powerful women featured inside of Clash Royale. Moving on to our next grouping, let's talk about the men of Clash Royale. And this is where things start to get a little more complicated. For most of the human-like troops in the game, it is usually explicitly stated what their gender is. Where we run into some confusion is for non-human species like skeletons, goblins, etc. So using only Supercell official lore, here is an overview of all of the men of Clash Royale. Pictured below are the 33 confirmed male cards inside of Clash. Many of the classifications below are really obvious, so once again, let's only talk about the anomalies. So let's talk about the goblins. From reading multiple verified descriptions of the goblin cards, we can see that their species is always referred to with male pronouns. We can see that here for the goblin giant, and we can see it here with the spear goblins, and even for the goblins inside of the goblin barrel where they are referred to as boys. So never in any card description or official lore can I find any evidence that the goblins fighting in the arena are female. So I consider this evidence enough to classify every goblin card inside of the arena as a male goblin. So let's talk about all of our skeleton cards. Inside of the game, there are several skeleton-like troops. But after looking into tons of Clash lore and multiple different card descriptions, I can only find one skeleton troop that has explicitly stated a male card gender, and that is the Bomber or Berry card, as we can see from the card description here. No other skeleton card explicitly fits into the all-male bucket. And I know what some of you are thinking, and I will get to groups of skeletons later. The bowler card has many male attributes, but the description is enough evidence to confirm that. The big blue dude is enough evidence for me. And finally, the last male card of the bunch I would consider to be ambiguous are the royal recruits, because like 95% of their bodies are covered, so you don't really know that they're all men. But recently, for the Perfect Match event, Supercell released this statement on behalf of the recruits that says, "If you don't want me, I have 5 brothers who are just as desperate," implying that the whole lot is a bunch of dudes. So the final count one last time is 33 cards explicitly labeled as males. Going into our smallest section, we have the male and female section, where we have a measly 3 cards. Since there are only 3 of them, I'll explain each one very briefly. The Little Prince is a little dude, and the Guardian is confirmed by Supercell to be a lovely large lady. Rascals is pretty obvious, but just to lock it in, if you look at the description below, it confirms these suspicions as well. However, this card is what surprised me the absolute most. Skeleton Army confirmed to contain cards of both genders. If we reference the card description, we can see this. Meet Larry and his friends, Harry, Jerry, Terry, and Mary. And I don't know about you, but I don't have any male friends named Mary, so I'm gonna take that at just face value, meaning we can lock them into the both male and female category. So one more time, here are those 3 cards that fit into the male and female section. And finally, any troop not sorted at this point will go ahead and fall into our ambiguous category. And for the remaining troops, there are 28 of them. And for these cards, all it means is that there was just not enough definitive information to sort them one way or the other. But there is always a chance that there is some old lore or lore that I overlooked that could help sort some of these 28 cards into the other 3 buckets. So please, if you think one of these 28 cards actually does fit into one of the other 3 buckets that I've covered in this video, please respectfully let me know in the comment section. I would love to hear what you guys think. All that being said, here are the final card groupings and count one last time for all of you, the 4 buckets as I call them, and the total count of each one. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I really hope that some of the information shown surprised you. As always, the content produced is intended to entertain, not to cause any harm, so I hope that I handled that boundary responsibly. So thank you all for watching. Please consider subscribing for daily Clash Royale content, and I'll see you in another video real soon.